The wooden doors of Grace Evangelical Church burst open with a thunderous crack that echoed off the vaulted ceilings like a gunshot in a library. Every head snapped around, widows in their Sunday hats, kids fidgeting with hymnals, the deacon's mid-sermon notes, as Joseph Harlan strode down the aisle, his boots thudding against the worn red carpet like a heartbeat gone rogue. Pastor Matthew Reeves gripped the pulpit so hard his knuckles bleached white, his voice cracking on the word forgiveness, as the man he'd loved in secret for 3 years locked eyes with him and said, loud enough for the back row to hear, "Maddie, we need to talk." Now, Matthew's sermon on redemption dissolved into chaos faster than a summer storm over the Kansas plains. Whispers rippled through the congregation like wind through wheat fields. Mrs. Hargrove's gasp. Tommy Jenkins dropping his offering envelope. Elder Harlan, no relation. Thank God. Half rising from his seat with a face redder than the blood of the lamb. Joseph didn't stop. He marched straight up those 3 carpeted steps to the chancel, his leather jacket creaking under the strain of shoulders built from hauling hay bales and nursing grudges. The air thickened with the scent of polished oak and fresh coffee from the fellowship hall. But all Matthew could smell was the faint trace of Joseph's cologne, sandalwood and regret, wafting up from below. "Joseph, please," Matthew hissed through gritted teeth, his blue eyes darting to the sea of faces below. He was 32, with the kind of boyish charm that had packed this little clapboard church in Elmwood, Kansas, since he'd taken over from old Pastor Wilkins 5 years back. Sandy hair, easy smile, sermons that quoted Springsteen alongside scripture. Folks said he was a breath of fresh air in a town choking on dust and doubt. But now that smile was a ghost, and his hands trembled as he set down his Bible. Not here. Not like this. Joseph's laugh was bitter, scraped raw from nights spent staring at motel ceilings. Not here? This is exactly here. Maddie. You've been preaching fire and brimstone about sin while we're burning in it together. I'm done hiding. He was 35, broader in the chest, with dark curls that fell over a forehead creased by too many unpaid bills and unspoken truths. They'd met at a dive bar in Wichita, 2 lost souls nursing whiskeys after midnight mass. Matthew fresh out of seminary, Joseph fresh out of a bad divorce that had left him questioning everything, including the God who'd let his ex-wife run off with the mechanic. The congregation shifted uneasily, a collective inhale like the calm before a twister. Elder Harlan cleared his throat, his voice booming from the front pew. "Young man, this is the house of the Lord. If you've got business with our pastor, take it outside." But Joseph ignored him, reaching out to grab Matthew's wrist, gentle, but firm enough to pull him half off the pulpit. Matthew yanked back, his heart slamming against his ribs like a trapped bird. "Everyone, please," Matthew said, forcing his preacher voice back into shape, smooth as river stones. "This is a misunderstanding. Brother Joseph is a friend from out of town. We'll handle this after the service." Lies, all of it, but they slid out easy as butter on cornbread. He'd built his life on them. The late-night drives to the state line for stolen kisses, the coded texts disguised as prayer requests, the sermons on grace that masked his own hypocrisy. Elmwood adored him, baked him pies, trusted him with their confessions, called him the hope of the heartland, and he'd adored them back, or tried to, until Joseph became the ache he couldn't pray away. But Joseph wasn't buying the deferral. "Friend, that's rich. Tell them, Maddie. Tell them how we met, how you whispered my name like a sin you couldn't confess." His voice dropped, intimate in its fury, carrying just far enough to make the front row lean in. A woman in the choir loft stifled a sob. Was it shock or recognition? Matthew's mind raced. The board meeting tomorrow. The youth retreat next week. The bishop's visit in a month. One crack, and the whole facade crumbled. As ushers moved to intervene, Joseph finally relented, stepping back with hands raised like a man surrendering to the law. Fine. After. But this ends today. He turned on his heel, the doors slamming behind him again, leaving a vacuum that sucked the air from the room. Matthew stood there, exposed under the crossbeams, and for the first time in years, he wondered if redemption was just another word for running. The service limped on, closing him sung off key. Benediction mumbled like an apology, but the damage was done. As folks filed out, shaking his hand with eyes averted, Matthew felt the weight of their unspoken questions. "Pray for me," he murmured to Widow Ellis, who patted his cheek with a trembling hand. "Always do, Pastor Matt. The Lord's got a plan, but whose plan? That's what terrified him." Outside, the November sun hung low over the flatlands, painting the gravel lot in shades of amber and accusation. Joseph leaned against his battered Ford pickup, arms crossed, the wind tugging at his jacket like an impatient lover. Matthew approached slow, like he was walking into a lion's den, the crunch of his loafers on stones the only sound between them. "You had to do that," Matthew said. Not a question. His breath fogged in the chill, mingling with Joseph's cigarette smoke. Joseph flicked the butt away, grinding it under his boot. "Yeah, I did. 3 years, Maddie. 3 years of motels and lies. And you still think you can preach your way out of loving me?" His eyes, green as prairie grass after rain, held a hurt so deep it made Matthew's chest ache. "It's not that simple." Matthew glanced back at the church, where silhouettes lingered in the doorway. Harlan, no doubt, plotting the emergency session. "This is my life. These people. They need me, and I don't." Joseph's voice cracked, the first real fracture in his armor. He stepped closer, close enough that Matthew could see the stubble shadowing his jaw, the faint scar from a bar fight in 18. "I drove 4 hours from Topeka because I found that letter in your desk, the one from the bishop, warning you about indiscretions. You were gonna end it, weren't you? To save your precious collar." Matthew flinched. The letter. He'd meant to burn it, but cowardice had glued it to his drawer. "I was protecting us." "If they knew. Protecting yourself." Joseph spat the words, but his hand reached out anyway, thumb brushing Matthew's cheek. It was electric, that touch, a spark across dry tinder. For a second, they were back in that Wichita motel, tangled in sheets that smelled of bleach and possibility, whispering futures neither believed in. The church bell tolled 4, a somber knell that pulled them apart. Headlights flicked on in the lot, folks heading home to pot roast and prayer chains. "Come to the parsonage," Matthew said finally, voice low. "We'll talk." "Really talk?" Joseph nodded, weary as an old dog. "Yeah. But no more half-truths, Maddie. Or I'm gone for good." The parsonage was a modest Victorian on the edge of town, white clapboard peeling like old skin, porch swing creaking in the wind. Inside, it smelled of lemon polish and loneliness, stacks of sermon notes on the kitchen table, a half-read copy of C.S. Lewis by the bed. Matthew poured coffee, black as sin, and they sat across from each other in the breakfast nook. the silence stretching like barbed wire. "Tell me about the letter," Joseph said, not touching his mug. Matthew sighed, rubbing his temples. "Bishop Ellis, you know, the one who ordained me. He got wind from some conference gossip. Nothing solid, just whispers. Said if I didn't clean house, the diocese would." He met Joseph's gaze. "Steady now." I panicked. Started pulling back. But I couldn't end it. "God help me, I can't." Joseph's laugh was softer this time, laced with something like hope. "God help you? Maddie, you've been helping yourself into a corner since day one." He leaned forward, elbows on the formica. "Remember Laramie? That weekend in the mountains, when we hiked to that overlook and you said loving me felt like touching the divine?" Matthew did remember, the way the aspens glowed gold, Joseph's hand warm in his, the world vast and forgiving below. "I meant it. Still do. Then fight for it." Joseph's fingers laced with his, rough calluses against smooth palms. "Or let me go." The kiss that followed was desperate. A dam breaking after drought. Lips crashing. Hands fumbling with buttons. The coffee forgotten as they stumbled toward the bedroom. It was messy, urgent, the kind of lovemaking that leaves marks. A bruise on Joseph's collarbone. A scratch down Matthew's back. Afterward, tangled in the quilt his grandmother had sewn, they lay listening to the coyotes yip in the distance. "I love you," Matthew whispered into the dark, the words foreign on his tongue in the light of day. Joseph pulled him closer. "Say it in church tomorrow." "Or I will." Sleep came fitful, haunted by dreams of stained glass shattering. Morning brought gray skies and a knock at dawn. Elder Harlan, Bible in hand, face carved from granite. "Pastor Reeves, we need to pray." The boardroom was the church basement. Fluorescent hum overhead. Folding chairs arranged in a circle like a firing squad. 7 elders, all men over 60, their wives banished to the craft fair upstairs. Harlan led, his voice gravelly as he invoked Psalm 23. But his eyes on Matthew were accusatory. "Son," he said when the amen faded, "last night's disturbance. Who was that man?" Matthew's throat tightened. The truth hovered, a bird on a wire. "A friend. From seminary days." Grunts of skepticism. Mrs. Harlan's cousin, Deacon Mills, leaned in. "Seminary don't explain the familiarity. Or the look on your face. Boy." The air soured with unspoken slurs. Sodomite, abomination, though no one dared voice them yet. Matthew's mind flashed to Joseph, waiting in the pickup down the block, engine idling like a getaway car. It was personal. "Nothing that affects my ministry." Harlan's fist thumped the table, rattling styrofoam cups. "Everything affects it. You're the shepherd, Matthew. One wolf in the fold, and the sheep scatter." Debate raged, calls for counseling, a leave of absence, whispers of the bishop. Matthew sat silent, the weight of their expectations crushing him like the Kansas clay after rain. By noon, it was decided, a sabbatical, effective immediately. "Pack your things. We'll handle announcements." He drove to the diner on Main, where Joseph nursed eggs over easy and black coffee. "It's done," Matthew said, sliding into the booth. "They're sidelining me." Joseph's fork paused midair. And I'm coming with you." The words tasted like freedom, sharp and new. "To Topeka. Or Wyoming." Anywhere but here. A slow grin spread across Joseph's face, the first real one in months. Wyoming's got space. And no pulpits. They left Elmwood that afternoon. The parsonage locked behind them, a for sale sign hammered into the lawn by dusk. The road unspooled west, golden fields giving way to scrub and sky, radio crooning Johnny Cash about walking the line. Matthew's hand rested on Joseph's thigh, a quiet claim. But peace was a fragile thing. 2 hours in, Joseph's phone buzzed, a text from his sister in Wichita. Heard about the pastor. That's your guy? Town's exploding. Then another, from an old bar buddy. Elmwood PD called. Harlan filed a report, trespassing. Disruption. Watch your back. Joseph's jaw set. They won't let it go. Matthew pulled over at a roadside rest stop, the wind howling through cottonwoods. What report? I didn't press charges. Harlan did. On me. Joseph's eyes darkened. That letter wasn't gossip, Matty. It was him spying, waiting for a crack. Betrayal hit like a sucker punch. Harlan, the man who'd mentored him, baptized his confirmations, shared Thanksgiving turkey, all while digging graves. Why? Power. Or fear? Take your pick. Joseph lit another smoke, the flame flickering in his eyes. We keep driving? We fight. Matthew's voice steadied, preacher fire igniting. Call a lawyer. Go public if we have to, but the fight found them first. That night in a Hayes motel, a knock, 2 deputies, badges glinting under the neon sign. Joseph Harlan? We need to ask about yesterday's incident. Handcuffs clicked cold around wrists. Matthew protested, followed to the station in his rental car, heart pounding like a drum in revival. The charge, disorderly conduct, aggravated by intent to disrupt religious proceedings. Harlan's statement painted Joseph as a stalker, unhinged ex-lover, twisting truths into knots. In the stark interrogation room, Joseph sat stone-faced as the deputy grilled him. Matthew paced the hall, calling the bishop's line voicemail. Curse it. By midnight, bail was set at $5,000, scraped from Joseph's savings and Matthew's emergency fund. They crashed in the car, too broke for another room, Joseph's head on Matthew's lap as semis thundered by. Dawn brought clarity, cruel as coffee. This is my fault, Matthew said, stroking Joseph's curls. I dragged you into it. No. Joseph sat up, fierce. You dragged me to life. Harlan's the sinner here, hiding hate behind holiness. They pressed on, but the shadow lengthened. Social media buzzed. Elmwood pastor scandal trending in Kansas feeds. Grainy video of Joseph's entrance going viral. Hate mail flooded Matthew's inbox. False prophet. Abomination. But glimmers too. A DM from a former congregant. You're brave. We see you. A news outlet requesting comment. Topeka welcomed them with rain-slick streets and Joseph's cramped apartment above a laundromat. For a week, it was domestic bliss, grocery runs hand in hand, nights cooking chili and watching old westerns, Joseph's laugh filling rooms that had known only echoes since his divorce. Matthew job hunted, youth counselor at a rec center, adjunct preaching at a progressive chapel. No more closets, he vowed, kissing Joseph's temple. But betrayal's echo lingered. One evening, as Joseph showered, Matthew's phone rang, Harlan's number. He answered, pulse racing. Pastor, Matthew. The voice was weary, stripped of bluster. I owe you truth. It wasn't just me. The bishop knew. Pushed me to act. Said it was mercy. Saving your soul. Matthew's world tilted. Mercy? You destroyed us. Silence. Heavy. I was scared. For the church. For you. A pause. Wet with unshed tears. But seeing that video. God forgive me. I was wrong. Come back. We'll fix it. The offer dangled. Poisoned fruit. Matthew hung up, chest heaving, and when Joseph emerged towel-clad, he spilled it all, the call, the confession, the pull of the pulpit like gravity. Joseph's face hardened. And you want to go? No. Matthew pulled him close. Water droplets cool on skin. I want us. But it hurts, Joe. Knowing they watched us unravel, they made love slow that night, reclaiming each inch. But dawn brought decision. Joseph had a lead construction gig in Denver. Steady pay. Start fresh. No ghosts. Matthew nodded, but doubt gnawed. As they packed, a letter arrived certified from the diocese. Resignation required, or defrocking. Enclosed, a check for severance, with strings attached, silence clause. He tore it up, pieces fluttering like confetti. We're done. The drive to Denver was cathartic. Windows down, wind whipping regrets away. Mile marker 200, Joseph proposed, casual as pie, with a ring from a pawn shop, silver, etched with psalms. Not perfect, but ours. Matthew laughed through tears. Yes, the climax brewed in the Rockies' shadow. A week in, settled in a sublet with views of snow-capped peaks. News broke. Harlan's confession to the local paper. Full mea culpa. I betrayed a good man for fear. The congregation split. Protests at the church steps. Rainbow flags waving beside pickets. Bishop Ellis resigned amid scandal. Matthew watched from afar, Joseph's arm around him. Redemption? He asked. Real this time, Joseph murmured. Ours to write. Winter deepened. Their love a quiet fire, hikes in the foothills. Joseph's hands calloused from beams. Matthew's from journals turned memoir. Letters poured in. Not hate but hope, your story saved me. They volunteered at a shelter, preached at Unity Church, where collars were optional and love mandatory. One spring Sunday, back in Elmwood for closure, invited, not ambushed. Matthew stood not at the pulpit, but beside Joseph in the pews. Harlan approached after, frail now, hand extended. Forgive me, Matthew took it. We're all works in progress, elder, as they drove east again, golden aspen blurring past. Matthew realized the hook that had snared him wasn't Joseph's entrance, but his exit from the lie. Love wasn't the stun, it was the standing ovation after. In the end, it wasn't happily ever after, life's too jagged for that. Joseph's knee gave out from old injury. Matthew's book deal fell through twice. But they built anyway. A home with creaky floors and laughter lines, vows renewed under mountain stars. Human, flawed, adored not by a crowd, but by each other. And in America's vast heartland, that was grace enough.